Yeah.
And that's what I really wanted to ask you a little bit more about in
Mm.
terms of mechanics.
Yeah.
When I say my character does this or my character does that,
Yeah.
what are my constraints on those statements? And I understand that there will be constraints based on concept. That's not what I mean. I understand that if my character is
So,
a
so if you give me an example, if your character says, I pull up my computer and hack this system, but you are a dentist, everyone
well,
says.
right, but I want to get away from that. That's easy, right?
Yeah.
That's easy. We don't have to worry about that kind of constraint. That's
No.
we accept that. I am talking
No.
about somewhat different constraints. In some games, they are extremely quantitative. You only have so many energy points, right? You have a
Yeah.
constraint in champions based on endurance.
Yeah.
It's right. Well, that's one kind of a constraint. There are other kinds as well. Some of them are just uses. If I am playing a game that I have called Extreme Vengeance, my character has all of these little abilities and features, but every time I use one, I cross it off,
Yeah.
right? And then there are other kinds where you, um, how am I going to put it? You don't use up energy points, uh, and you don't cross it off. But for example, you have to accept a particular consequence or risk.
Yeah.
So those are some of the different kinds of
Yeah.
constraints we
I
put.
get what I
Yeah.
get what, but the only thing that has any resemblance of that is actually filling, because there's a limited space of establishing sentences,
Yes. Yes. Uh huh.
uh, and those are limited as it is now. So when you reach that limit, first you're rewarded with like
Right. You
filling
get
this
to
up.
fill in more of them. Yes. Uh huh.
Yeah, and then what happens is that you have to refine them when they are full.
We were talking about constraints on behaviors, and you were talking about the filling out of the features. And I think that for it to operate as a constraint, then that means that those lists should not be too long. The transition from filling it up to refining what is already there, that switch is, I think that sounds exciting and interesting. And so it is the kind of thing that I would not like to look ahead for hours and hours and hours, but that it should be fairly easy to fill, and then that makes it very interesting to refine. Does that make sense?
At first, when I the way I have it now is that you just have like 10 slots to fill in
Right.
basically anything. Because when I started designing this, they were more specific. They were like, this is this is an ability, this is a
Right.
skill, and this is
Right.
so. And but I realized early on the early playtest that constraint didn't add too much, and I didn't know what was good and what was not. But now I know a couple of things that I really want people to write something about. So I could solve that by like having slots where you can write anything, but some slots I really want people to say something about
Right.
uh, specific
So
things.
you would have categories for slots.
Yeah,
Okay. That's interesting. Well, I will not discover this until play, but I'm
yeah,
very, very interested in how playing relates to filling in the slots. And I'm
yeah,
going to be
and
very interested in what happens when the slots in a given category are full, and then what you do after that. These really
yeah,
interest me, both of them. And the reason is because I think that productive constraints on behavior are very valuable. And in some
yeah,
ways, a game
they
like
are.
this benefits from the character having a wide open potential in the beginning,
Mm,
but
mm,
not to have a wide open potential at the end.
no,
Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
It's like we
That
are
makes
looking
sense.
at the character as an audience.
Mm,
We are looking at the character closer and closer and closer and closer as we
mm,
go.
mm.
And you are shaping the way that your character is going to be the most effective and the most active at the climactic aspects of the end.
Yeah.
You are kind of shaping this without knowing it as you go along. And I think
Well,
that's a cool thing. I think it's a very interesting and exciting part of the design as you have described it.
yeah. Because what it is when it comes, because the first scene, in the first scene, you yourself know very little about your character.
Right, exactly.
So the exploration phase, but when after a while you have kind of a concept clear to yourself and probably your co-players also, then we are interested in, okay, what more can we know? But to a certain degree, we want also experience some kind of change in the character, some kind of character development. So that I want to embody that into the system, so you kind of feel that. And I think the constraint part is I mean, there's very loose rules around that, but I think that is something that you can, more or less build into the system in a better way.
There are some ways to do that, and also, as you are correctly saying, you don't want to over-engineer it.
No.
Right. So this is where my attention will be when I play it again. That's where my attention is going to be.
I've also experienced two things. In the early playtest, I've actually playtested this game a lot.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I mean, I've played it like probably now at least with different decks, and sometimes with the same deck with different people.
Right.
I played it at least 20 times or something like that.
I completely understand. Yeah.
But in the early and early in the process, but also early in the design process with the early playtest, but also with some people when they have problems filling in. They don't know. I mean, what am I supposed? What's a good thing to write? That's
right.
And a good and interesting question. But if that's a problem for people, that also means that the pacing and the tempo goes down where you're going to write.
No, I completely agree, and so it's a very interesting point. We should talk more about this in the context of playing, I think, because it's hard for me to. I can understand what you are saying conceptually, but to understand it in a way that permits me to suggest or compare or be practical, I can't do that right now. I need to try it. So
yeah, I totally understand, and I've tried to solve it. First of all, I wrote a long lists of different themes that you could add to this.
Yes, but then they get paralyzed. They are trying to choose, and it makes no sense. And
it's very connected to the constraints that you're talking to.
Yes,
because what the question at hand is, what am I supposed to write that is cool and relevant, but in the same time good in a game context?
Exactly,
what makes
correct.
my character?
You don't want to write something down that's going to screw you over. You want to, or if you want to write screw you over, you want it to be in the way you want, right? The fun way.
Yeah.
So
and you know the thing we discussed last time, that with goals, that's a good example of things that usually are not that good to write.
Exactly. Goals in this case are kind of a pain in the ass. We want to know how your character does things and what they're dealing with in the moment, not where they are going. So it's
or maybe why you want to go somewhere.
Right.
Why do I want? Because I have a really in play good example. And I kind of explained what you can write, and so he wrote down, "Oh, I want to go to this station. I really want to go to this point on the map," and that was not. I mean, that was a good goal.
It's understandable, it was no problem. But it's not very exciting, and it doesn't tell you anything about the character.
No, and when we started to play, I immediately realized that I'm not interested in putting up some kind of obstacle for him to reach this goal in like this.
Right.
So
right.
okay, you're at the station now. What do you do?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I reached my goal. What's so that kind of and that
it's
made
a good learning experience to experience that, and it's also another reason why there are games. There's one game right now that everybody's excited about because apparently there's all these star systems, and there's a little way like in Traveler for you to roll and discover what is going on at a particular spot. And the big conceit of the game is that the players get to say where they are going to go, so the GM doesn't control anything. But that's bullshit, because all that means is they're going somewhere, and the GM just makes up a classic role-playing situation wherever they go.
Yeah.
So it's bullshit to say that, oh, it's a sandbox, and it's like, oh, fuck you, right? You're boring me with this bullshit. And so the point then is, as you say, when you write down something on the card, your sheet should be enriched. It should feel more like a character sheet. You know,
that's also a thing that is a bit problematic, because you spend some time. Some people just write things down, but you should really. It's very important that the things that you write down is like is told to everyone else.
Right.
Because if it's stuck on your character sheet, it doesn't make any sense.
Here's a suggestion in terms of getting your thought processes going.
Yeah.
What if whatever you write down is something that you just did or showed or wished you had, or otherwise is easily connected with what just happened?
So, yeah, I used to have that. I used to play with that, and that is a really good way, a technique or rule, depending on how you see it. If you're planning on playing several sessions, so you have because it's a slow way of doing it.
That's true. That's true. I was thinking about a game where. I was thinking about a game where they had a very interesting mechanic for improvement. It had a lot of skills. This was a game with a lot of skills. And you could get, after every session, you got a +1 in something that you did. And you could also put a +1 in something that you really, really plan on using next time. You're looking at that and saying, I bet I'm going to need that next time. And you put a +1 on that one. So it was a neat way to put your character improvement right into the moment of play, which I liked. So, but so in this case, there are others. Now, here's kind of a groovy one, which I'm not sure I like, but I'm only putting it here so it's in your head.
Yeah.
Which is somebody else says what it is.
Yeah, that's a very, very good suggestion. Very good,
it has 1,000 problems with it. There's 1,000. Yeah,
but I think,
but there are aspects of it. Let it go in your head for a while and see what happens when you roll it.
I like that. I totally like that. And the way it usually is that since I've played it a long time, I kind of coach people into a good establishment, and that's not a good way.
No,
I don't want
it's not,
that
because you have to realize what it is you are saying.
Exactly.
What's the content of the coaching?
Or people suggest things to others and says, "What if you write this? Isn't that good?" Yeah, that's
exactly.
So it's kind
there
of
is some kind of interaction there that's kind of useful, right? Something.
It is. And I like that. I don't
this
like
is what
that people
I see in your character. This is what I see, and the person is, oh, you're right. I did that. Yeah.
So and I talked to my friend Eric, that has been the one that has played this the most times, and we talked about table talk, and he said, wouldn't it be interesting to formalize table talk as a phase